What can a person's last meal say about them? Is it a reflection of their life, a final comfort, or a silent message? In this video, we will uncover the most bizarre and unusual last meal requests from death row inmates. This is Aileen Wuornos, who is one of the most well-known female criminals in American history. Born on February 29, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan, Wuornos had a difficult start in life. Her father was in prison when she was born and was never part of her life. Her mother left her and her brother when they were very young, leaving them to be raised by their grandparents. But was this new home any better? Reports suggest she faced a harsh upbringing, experiencing struggles that shaped her troubled path. In 1989 and 1990, she was connected to 7 incidents in Florida, where men lost their lives under similar circumstances. She later claimed that each situation was an act of self-protection, saying the men had tried to harm her. But was she truly defending herself, or was there another reason behind her actions? Authorities eventually linked her to these cases through fingerprints and witness accounts. When she was taken into custody in 1991, she gave conflicting statements, sometimes insisting she had no choice, other times showing little emotion about what had happened. During her legal battles, her defense team argued that she acted in fear, while prosecutors painted a very different picture. With strong evidence against her, the outcome was decided, and she was given the most serious punishment allowed by law. In the time leading up to her final day at Florida State Prison, Wuornos made headlines for her unpredictable behavior. Was it regret, anger, or something else entirely? Some reports say she believed she was being mistreated, while others suggest she had given up completely. Many people on this path request a special last meal, often choosing something meaningful or indulgent. But Wuornos refused any extra food, asking only for a cup of black coffee. What does this choice say about her mindset in those final hours? Even today, her story continues to spark debate. Was she shaped by her difficult past, or was she always destined for a life of wrongdoings? And imagine an entire family working together to create chaos, because that's exactly what happened with the next 3 brothers. James Briley wasn't acting alone. He was part of a trio, 3 siblings who terrorized Richmond, Virginia in 1979. Along with an accomplice named Duncan Eric Meekins, they carried out a series of shocking acts, but their reign wouldn't last forever. 2 would-be victims managed to escape, providing authorities with the leads they needed. Soon after, the entire group was caught. James and his older brother Linwood received the harshest sentences, while their younger brother Anthony and their accomplice Meekins were given life sentences instead. But here's where things take a wild turn. James and Linwood weren't ready to accept their fate. They fought hard in court, filing appeal after appeal. And then, in 1984, something unbelievable happened. Along with 4 other inmates, the 2 brothers managed to escape from prison. For 3 weeks, authorities scrambled to find them, and when they were finally recaptured, it only added to their notoriety. James Briley's final meal request? Fried shrimp with cocktail sauce and a lemon-lime soft drink. As he faced his final moments, he looked at the witnesses and asked twice, "Are you happy?" The next man didn't just commit horrific acts. He built an entire house designed for them. And to this day, some people wonder if all of his victims were ever discovered. H. Holmes, or should we say, Dr. H. Holmes was one of the most infamous con artists in American history. But his terror went far beyond fraud. While most criminals focus on one method, Holmes was involved in nearly every illegal activity imaginable: insurance frauds, check forgery, and even multiple secret marriages. But the most chilling part? His so-called castle. This wasn't just any house. It was a carefully designed trap, complete with hidden passageways and rooms with no escape. Holmes eventually confessed to 27 horrific acts, though some experts believe the real number was much higher. He once said, "I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I did what I did any more than a poet can help the inspiration to sing." When the time came for his sentence to be carried out, Holmes made a strange request. He wanted to be buried 10 feet deep in cement. Why? He feared that someone might dig him up. His last meal? Boiled eggs, toast, and coffee. But Holmes wasn't the only one with a bizarre request. The next man on our list chose something so simple, yet so eerie, that it still leaves people unsettled. Unlike the others, Robert Buell's axe targeted the most vulnerable members of society. He had lived a seemingly normal life, working in a city planning department in Akron, Ohio. But behind closed doors, he was hiding a terrible secret. His arrest came after investigators linked him to a particularly heartbreaking case. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and the court wasted no time in delivering a strong sentence. But what truly makes his case stand out? His final request. While many choose extravagant meals, Buell asked for something completely unexpected. One single black olive. Why such a strange choice? Was it a symbol? A message? Or was it simply his way of making sure people remembered him in an unusual way? Whatever the reason, it remains one of the most talked about final meal requests in history. Can a final meal reveal something about a person's true nature? For John Wayne Gacy, one of the most well-known figures in criminal history, his last meal was surprisingly connected to his past before everything unraveled. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy's carefully crafted image hid a much darker reality. He targeted young men and teenagers, often luring them to his home under false pretenses. What happened next remained a secret for years. The truth was only uncovered in December 1978, when authorities searched his home and made a shocking discovery. They discovered the remains of 29 young men and boys buried in the crawlspace beneath his house. How had he managed to keep his actions hidden for so long? At his trial, the evidence against him was undeniable. Witnesses came forward, and physical proof left no room for doubt. In 1980, the court handed down a final decision, one that would mark the beginning of his long wait in confinement. On May 10, 1994, Gacy was given one last opportunity to choose a meal. What would he pick? Would it be something extravagant or meaningful? His choice was unexpectedly simple: 12 deep-fried shrimp, a bucket of original recipe KFC chicken, French fries, and a pound of strawberries. After finishing his meal, he was led to the chamber where everything would come to an end. When asked if he had any last words, he simply muttered, "Kiss my," before the process began. Moments later, John Wayne Gacy's story reached its final chapter, leaving behind questions, controversy, and a legacy that continues to be studied today. The next case sparks even more intense questions. This is Gary Mark Gilmore, who became widely known for insisting that his sentence be carried out. Ordered a meal of steak, potatoes, milk, and coffee the night before his final moments. But in the end, he only drank the milk and coffee. Why did he leave the rest untouched? As a teenager, he started with small offenses, but over time his actions grew more serious. By his 20s, he had spent much of his life in correctional facilities, unable to change his ways. In 1976, after being released, Gilmore moved to Utah to stay with relatives. Could this have been a fresh start? Unfortunately, within months, he made choices that would seal his fate. That summer, he was involved in 2 separate incidents just days apart. During his trial, there was no doubt about the outcome. Witnesses, physical evidence, and reports all pointed directly to him. But instead of fighting to change the verdict, he did something unexpected. He refused to appeal. On his last evening, Gilmore requested what many might consider a classic, hearty meal. But why did he not eat most of it? Was it nerves, acceptance, or something else entirely? No one can say for certain. But what would Ted Bundy, America's most notorious figure, order as his last meal? It might surprise you. Born in 1946, Bundy had a troubled upbringing. He was raised believing his mother was his sister, a lie that, some believe, contributed to his psychological issues. Throughout the 1970s, Bundy committed a series of horrific acts across multiple states. He often pretended to need help, using slings or crutches to appear harmless. Once he gained a victim's trust, he would take advantage of the situation. The true number of people he harmed remains unknown, though he admitted to at least 30 cases. On January 24, 1989, Bundy spent his last hours in Florida State Prison. He declined to request a special final meal, so he was given the standard option. His choice to eat a simple breakfast stood in stark contrast to the horrors he had committed. Some say it was a final act of control, while others believe it reflected nothing more than a routine preference. As he was led to his final moments, crowds gathered outside the prison, cheering. His last words were reportedly directed at his lawyer and a minister, offering no real remorse. At 7:16 a.m., it was over. Even decades later, Bundy's name remains one of the most notorious in criminal history. His ability to hide in plain sight continues to be studied, and his case reminds that appearances can be deceiving. So what made Ted Bundy to commit such honorific acts? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Next up is Oscar Ray, a man whose acts shocked the nation. He was involved in multiple attacks on women in Tampa, Florida, and was later connected to another case in Texas back in 1987. For nearly 4 years, investigators struggled to solve these cases, until a surprising tip came in from an unexpected source. It was the husband of Boland's ex-wife who made the call, setting off a chain of events that would lead to his conviction. But even with mounting evidence, Oscar never admitted to anything. Not even when his own half-brother testified against him. What really sealed his fate? His cousin came forward, revealing a disturbing story about what happened to 30-year-old Deborah Diane Stowe outside a convenience store in Greenville, Texas. The cousin's testimony played a key role in finally bringing justice. By 1991, Oscar Ray was handed his first major sentence. Over the years, more evidence surfaced, leading to additional convictions. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite everything, he continued to claim he was innocent right up until the very end. Before his sentence was carried out, Oscar gave an interview where he described the outcome as a release from his time behind bars, having spent 28 years in confinement. For his final meal, he requested a ribeye steak, a baked potato, salad, garlic bread, and lemon meringue pie. While his case was shocking, wait until you hear about the next one. This person had a chilling nickname tied to one of America's busiest highways. Gary Ray Bowles was sometimes referred to as the I-95 attacker, because most of his victims lived near the Interstate 95 highway. His horrific acts took place in 1994, and he later admitted to targeting multiple people. But what made Bowles different? His own words revealed a disturbing mindset. He once told investigators that he blamed an entire group of people for something that happened in his personal life. His misguided anger led to a series of violent encounters, each more disturbing than the last. During his trial, Gary pleaded guilty, and that was all the court needed to take action. But here's where it gets complicated. His original sentence was actually overturned because the jury was given certain details about his beliefs as he was homosexual, and the court later ruled should not have been considered. Despite that temporary setback, a new hearing led to the same result, another guilty verdict. By 1999, his fate was sealed. And when the time finally came, Bowles made a simple request for his last meal: 3 cheeseburgers, French fries, and bacon. Now, what a soldier like Timothy McVeigh would request in his final hours. Born in 1968, McVeigh grew up in New York, where he developed a strong interest in weapons and survivalist ideas. After serving in the Gulf War, where he was recognized for his skills, he became increasingly frustrated with the government. The 1993 Waco incident, where many lives were lost in a standoff between federal agents and a religious group, fueled his anger. Was he consumed by his own beliefs? On April 19, 1995, McVeigh arrived in Oklahoma City, parking a truck outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. At 9:02 a.m., an explosion shook the city, leaving devastation in its wake. Why would he believe this was a solution? Investigators quickly connected the dots. He was arrested not long after, during what seemed like a routine traffic stop. McVeigh didn't deny his involvement. Instead, he tried to justify his actions, claiming they were in response to previous government incidents. Could any reasoning ever explain such devastation? The jury reached a decision in just 3 days. As his final day approached, McVeigh remained calm. When offered a last meal, he made a surprising choice: just ice cream. No extravagant feast, no elaborate dish, just something cold and sweet. While McVeigh's final meal choice might seem bizarre, it's not until you hear about David Leon Woods. How can someone live a seemingly normal life while hiding such dark intentions? That's the question that comes into mind when looking at the story of David Woods, a man whose actions left a deep impact on El Paso, Texas. He was known by a chilling nickname, the Desert Killer. From an early age, Woods showed troubling signs. Did anyone around him suspect what he was capable of? By the time he was 19, he was already engaging in serious offenses, leading to time behind bars. For a while, it seemed like he had turned things around. He joined a motorcycle club, gained popularity, and charmed many of the young women in his community. But was it all just a facade? Between May and August of 1987, authorities believe Woods was responsible for a series of horrific acts that shocked the area. 6 lives were taken, and the evidence pointed straight to him. Yet, throughout the investigation, he denied everything. Was he playing a game? Despite the lack of direct proof, witness testimonies and circumstantial evidence built a case against him. He was eventually found guilty and given a sentence he could not escape. But even as the years passed, Woods continued to insist he was not responsible. If that were true, why did every appeal fail? After spending 22 years awaiting his final moment, Woods had one last choice left: his final meal. What does a person think about when making that decision? Some choose extravagant feasts, while others pick something meaningful from their past. Woods made an unusual request: a simple pizza and an entire birthday cake. The odd part? It wasn't even his birthday. That day wouldn't have come for another 3 months. Why celebrate something that would never arrive? In the end, Woods shared the meal with his family, a rare moment of normalcy in an otherwise dark story. Was it an attempt to hold on to the last bit of humanity, or just another part of the mystery surrounding him? How can a person sit down to a meal knowing it will be their last? This was the reality for Stephen Wayne Anderson on January 29, 2002, as he awaited his final moments at San Quentin Prison. What led him to this point? Born on July 8, 1953, Anderson's early years remain largely unknown, but his later life was filled with actions that could not be ignored. He became involved in serious incidents, including working as a contract person to take out the lives of innocents. He admitted to carrying out at least 7 assignments, along with another incident involving a fellow inmate. With each action, his path became more irreversible, leading to one incident that would seal his fate. On the night of May 26, 1980, Anderson broke into the home of 81-year-old Elizabeth Lyman in Bloomington, California. Did he plan for things to unfold the way they did? His original intent was burglary, but when Lyman woke up, he reacted without hesitation. Afterward, he made himself comfortable in her home, eating food from her kitchen and watching television, as if nothing had happened. Did he believe he would get away with it? That question was answered when authorities arrived and arrested him. His trial lasted for years, with his defense team arguing that his difficult past had influenced his choices. But could anything justify the path he had taken? The evidence was overwhelming. His own words, along with his past actions, left little doubt about his involvement. The legal system reached its decision, and he was given a date when everything would come to a close. As that day arrived, Anderson was given the opportunity to request his final meal. His request was an interesting mix: 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, a pint of cottage cheese, a hominy and corn mixture, peach pie, chocolate chip ice cream, and radishes. Why this combination? Did it remind him of something from his past? Or was it simply a random choice? As he sat down to eat, was he thinking about his life? Did he have any regrets? There was no visible sign of fear or second thoughts, just the quiet routine of a tradition granted to those in his position. Soon after, he was led to the chamber where everything would come to an end. His story, like many before him, tells us a lot about the choices people make and the lasting impact they leave behind. While Steven Anderson took the lives of 7 innocent people, it's truly shocking. But what Robert Harris committed will leave your guts wrenched. Now, this is Robert Alton Harris, a man whose actions shocked California and led to an outcome the state hadn't seen in decades. On July 5, 1978, Harris made a choice that would define his legacy. Along with his younger brother, he approached 2 16-year-old boys, John Maysky and Michael Baker, who were sitting in their car outside a fast food restaurant in San Diego. What could have been a simple encounter turned into something far worse. The brothers forced the teenagers to drive to a secluded area, and in a shocking turn of events, Harris took their lives. He then used the stolen car to commit another horrific act later that day. But did he really believe he could get away with it? Authorities quickly caught up with him, and he was arrested within hours. The severity of his actions left no doubt in the minds of the jury. In 1979, he was given the most severe punishment the court could hand down, beginning a legal battle that would stretch on for over a decade. Harris was given the opportunity to choose his last meal, and his request was staggering: a 21-piece bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, 2 large Domino's pizzas, a bag of jelly beans, a 6-pack of Pepsi, and a pack of Camel cigarettes. On April 21, 1992, Harris faced the consequences of his actions at San Quentin Prison, marking California's first event of this kind in 25 years. Could things have been different if he had taken another route, or was his future set in stone from the start? Sometimes, life gives us a chance to return to normal, but some individuals choose to stay on the wrong path. That is the case with the next story. How can a person calmly enjoy their favorite meal, knowing it will be their last? It's a strange thought, but it becomes even more unsettling when looking at the case of Peter Kürten, a man who spread fear throughout Germany in the early 20th century. Known as the Vampire of Dusseldorf, he gained his infamous title due to the horrifying nature of his act. But how did a man like this come to be, and what led to his final moments? Curtin was born in 1883 into a troubled home. From an early age, he showed signs of disturbing behavior, and as he grew older, his actions became more serious. For years, the city was plagued by incidents that left people in fear. The acts were brutal, and the way Curtin carried them out only added to the terror. It wasn't just the harm he caused, it was the way he seemed to enjoy it. The police worked tirelessly to track him down, but he managed to avoid capture for a long time. Eventually, in 1930, his horrific acts caught up with him. Unlike modern methods, he would face an old-fashioned procedure, one that had been used for centuries in Europe. But before that, he was given one final request: his last meal. Surprisingly, his choice was rather simple. He asked for Wiener Schnitzel, a traditional German dish made from breaded and fried meat, along with fried potatoes and a bottle of white wine. It was an ordinary meal, completely at odds with the terrifying reputation he had built. Was Peter Curtin's final meal a final attempt to appear normal? Or was he simply indulging one last time, as if he had no care in the world? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. At first glance, how could a kind, church-going grandmother earn the nickname Death Row Granny? Margie Velma Barfield seemed like an ordinary woman, but beneath her quiet demeanor was a story that shocked the nation. She was convicted of one incident, but later admitted to 6 more, leaving many to wonder, how did she manage to go unnoticed for so long? Those who knew her described her as polite and deeply religious, making it even harder to believe the truth. Born in 1932 in South Carolina, Velma's early life was marked by struggles. She married young, and after facing hardships, she developed a dependence on medication. Some believe this played a role in the actions that later unfolded. Over time, those close to her fell ill under mysterious circumstances. When investigators finally connected the dots, the evidence pointed directly to Velma. Her trial was widely followed, and despite multiple appeals, her fate was sealed. In 1984, she became the first woman in the U.S. to face a certain court-ordered conclusion using a particular method. But before that, she was given a final request: one last meal of her choosing. With so many options available, what would she pick? A home-cooked feast? A lavish spread? Surprisingly, Velma didn't ask for much. Instead of a full meal, she requested something incredibly simple: a bag of cheese doodles and a can of Coke. Was it a small comfort in an unfamiliar situation, or did she just not have much of an appetite? Her choice left many wondering about the final moments of those in her position. Does food lose its appeal when one's time is limited, or does a favorite snack become more meaningful? Velma's story, like her final request, is a reminder that even the most unassuming people can carry secrets, and that sometimes the smallest things bring the most comfort.